Welcome back to the workshop. Today we're going to look at part 2 of the small woodworking projects that I've done here in the shop. Things that just take a day or so, or maybe a couple days. Not big projects like furniture, puzzle cabinets, or other items. So we're going to look at a bird feeder, a paint tray, and a block for holding a whetstone. Now that we are in the workshop, I should add that I'm still getting stuff set up. This space for me is really large enough for what I need to do. I mean, I've got my tools over there. I've got the cobalt bench over there. More tools over here. This is more of DIY around the house stuff that I need, and we need to put it somewhere. Of course, my workbench. Got tools here. My car. You hear that? That is the hood of my car. So the car is parked. This is a Kia Sportage, so one of those mid-size SUVs fit in the garage with me as well. And the point of this is that, and one of the points of my channel is that you can do woodworking in a small space. I don't have the full use of the 2-car garage. I could, but my wife's car is on the other side normally, and so it limits me. For me, this space is all I need. And so for any of you out there who have a small space or just a room to do woodworking, you don't need a lot to have great fun just tinkering around, making some stuff. It may not be enough room for an entire table saw or bandsaw or drill press or all those different things, lathe, joiner machine. Certainly that would take up a lot of room. But for me, for hand tool woodworking, this space is great. This is better than great for me. And if I need a little more space, the car goes out and I've got the whole rest of the garage. So just wanted to put that out there that you can do woodworking in a small space. First thing, this is a bird feeder that I made probably in 2017. If you had seen some of my shorts, you'll know I did a little short on this when it snowed one day after Christmas. I put it out for the birds, and they showed no interest in it whatsoever. So that's why that video never ended. It's a very simple design. I designed this myself. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe birds don't like this design. It's always possible. This is primarily made out of scrap material. In fact, the boards on the bottom, these boards down here, I got from a local lumber yard, scrap yard kind of thing, where they bring boards in to make pallets and crates. And so it says the name of that place on there and where that was. And so you could tell that I got that right out of their waste bin, which a lot of woodworkers did. A lot of woodworkers would go to the waste bin because they knew they could get certain size of wood for free. That's what we do. And so this, the bottom is made this way because it can fit over a rail. And when I originally made this, I made it to fit over the rails of the deck on the back of the house. And so it became more of a squirrel feeder than a bird feeder, although birds would come and eat out of here. Of course, this is your hopper. You put the food in here, and then it rushes up to the front as they eat it. What the squirrels would do is they would come in and actually flip the thing open and get inside, and they would just enjoy themselves inside the diner rather than at the trough. So again, this is made almost entirely of pine and that sort of cheaper. Actually, this is poplar. These pieces here are poplar, probably left over from one of my other poplar projects. I'm going to guess 2017, that would have been the Apothecary. Well, the Apothecary wasn't made yet. Who knows? It's some wood that was left over from something. So this here is pine. It's probably actually no, it's 2 pieces because the grain is running differently. Attached with hinges. Again, it's a bird feeder. And it worked well in eastern North Carolina, but here in eastern Tennessee, the birds just don't show any interest yet. I also am in competition with a nicer bird feeder several yards away, so they may just have no interest in this just yet. But anyway, this is a nice little bird feeder. Like I said, I made this off my own design. Pieces with a slant attached to a base, raised up with two pieces below, two slats below, again, to fit on a rail. It wasn't really meant for hanging from a tree. I had thought about that, but I couldn't think how to. I mean, if you do it like this, it'll just it won't it won't hold up. It'll just spill all over the ground. So, and again, it's just sort of a design concept I came up on my own. And let me tell you, the birds didn't. Here, they don't really like it, but in Eastern North Carolina, Newbern, North Carolina, they did enjoy it. So maybe a little more experimentation on that. Before I got into landscape painting that I do now, I did paint by number. This is a paint by number I did several years ago. I've got it in a frame with glass, so it's kind of hard to see it. Let's see if I can get this a little closer. So a paint by number would be, they give you canvas and everything's traced out and then numbers in every single space, and you use paint to, so basically you're just adding paint to their design. This one took a long time because of all the color that had to be done in the trees. This is a large kit. I believe it came out from Plaid or something like that. That company, they come in large boxes. You can find them at any hobby big box store you want to go to. Anyway, that's what those look like. They give you like 24 to 30 little buckets of paint. Some colors have multiple buckets because they know they're going to use a lot of it in the picture. So what I decided to do was to make a tray for putting all those little buckets in. Instead of just having them out on the table or all over the place, I decided to make a tray to put them all in order so I could just get to them as quickly as I could. So this is a little tray. This is just a block of pine wood that I made. I would have used a spade bit for a drill. This was made February 2014, so that's going to be before the woodworking that I do today, which I started really in November. If you saw the part 1 video, you know that one of those projects that was done in fall of 2014. That's really when I started in woodworking. Anyway, so what I did is I used a spade bit with a cordless or a power drill and drilled out all the different holes to a certain depth that didn't go through the whole thing, because there are some holes on the back. Well, you can't see them on the back. I can see them on here. But anyway, they went through. Now, of course, I went through first and with ruler figured out how many spaces were available, how many pots, because these are really well laid out, and there's no way I just drilled this, by hand. I would have figured out where all the holes were. Probably used a template with circles to figure out where they would go. And then in the middle, using just a chisel, I made 2 slots for putting paintbrushes in. When you're doing these paint by numbers, they use a smaller brush. They're not using the larger brushes that I use today for the type of painting that I'm doing now, where you're getting into things like this. This is what I use with the Matthew Palmer paint watercolor series that I am part of. Those use big brushes. That's not what this is for. So for these sets, they usually come with a paintbrush, and the one that they come with is all you need, because and you might get a really thin one. I know I got a really thin one to get into some of those really small spaces. But for this, I wanted to add those so it wouldn't roll around on the table. I also made 2 spots here for actually putting them in. And so I could actually store the paintbrushes there while I was doing my work. And then let's say I wanted to use the fine brush, I'd just leave that there, I'd take it out, use what I needed for while I kept the other one there. Again, it's not rolling around on the table. Anyway, that's a very basic, small project. Not everybody's doing painting, obviously, but there are other uses for this, obviously, around the house or in the shop. You can use this, for all kinds of things. If you have different little containers for your screws or nuts or something like that, you can make something like this. Of course, you'll need a larger, or like a Forstner bit or something like that. But again, you could do something like this in your workshop. So when I got started in woodworking, the sharpening, how I sharpen things, I started with just a whetstone, an oil whetstone. I eventually worked up to a diamond stone as well. So I do have a couple diamond stones. I have one, just a cheapy one that I bought from a Bass Pro Shop, and then another one, a DMZ, or DMT I think is what up here it'll show what it really is. So anyway, I made this. There were instructions in a book about how to make a whetstone case, and so I kind of used that. I'm guessing what they originally suggested was, 5 pieces of wood that 4 pieces make a wall around, and the 5th one goes underneath, and to do the same for making a lid. For me, I kind of did a different route on that. The bottom of this whetstone box is actually a solid 2x4. Take this out. So this is a solid 2x4 that I cut out the center to make sort of a bathtub for the whetstone to fit in. And the way that I did this was, of course, I started with a mallet and chisel. And, well, first I would have started with a knife to kind of cut out, the outline of what I was working on. And then work my way down. Now, I'm going to guess that in addition to that chisel, I probably also used one of these things. This is a mortise chisel. And so I had used the mortise chisel on the wood storage table. If you had seen that video, that was primarily used that because that's the main place that I used a mortise chisel. But I'm going to guess that I probably used it on this as well to do this, probably more than I used one of these. So anyway, got this out with the chisel and then smoothed it down with a small router plane. And now I know this project was done before the bench was made. I believe the bench wasn't here yet. And so I think I made this on the saw bench. And there might be a picture here of where I used the saw bench, not for sawing, but for a holding, to hold this in place as I brought the router plane towards me. And so that was something I did based on the idea of using it as a low bench, that you sit on, you clamp a piece in place, and you work towards yourself. So they did that, back in the 18th century. And so that's one way that we did that. Of course, if I did this again, I would get a much larger, the Veritas router plane with different blades to do that. Currently, this has one of my smaller blades. I have a 1/4 and an 1/8-inch blade for some of the puzzle boxes that I do, but it comes with a 1/2-inch blade. When I bought it, it came with 2 1/2-inch blades. I don't know what it comes with now, but just using one of those 1/2-inch blades would be more than enough to take this out. You could also use a router, an actual router machine. I don't have a router machine here at home, but where I used to work, they had a power router, a Porter cable, and that would work fine for something like this. Again, I tend to be hand tool woodworking, and so that's what I'm going to use for this kind of project. I did this again recently, as you may remember, and made this soap box. This one's a little better made. This is the soap is for, this is a artist soap. You can use it on your hands and on your skin, but I use it primarily for paintbrushes. If I've been painting with either acrylic or watercolor. Watercolor washes out very easily. Acrylic, it can dry, it can cause a little more issues. It can be used on oil paint, it can be used on gouache, all kinds of things. So anyway, I use this for cleaning my brushes, and it's very soft, and it can stay in there overnight. It's no big deal. It'll condition the brush. And so this is made the same way of cutting it down, routing it out, And now the difference is this one I've done a little more smoothing to the edges. I really smoothed the edges down because I wanted to make it not rough. I wanted to make it not sharp. I wanted to make it a lot easier to work with, especially when I'm done with a painting project. I can just clean up real quick, put it back. This was made in October of 2021, and it doesn't have a lid. It doesn't need a lid because it's kept in a drawer in the room where I do the cleanup from my painting. Back to the sharpening. The sharpening box. I think this is before I ever. It says July on there. July 20. Might say 2013. I don't know. I don't know what that says. 2018. Who knows? That's pencil. It's hard to see. Additional, I made the top, and then on the top I put one of these leather smoothing strap, a leather strap. That's what it's called. I put a leather strap on it. So the idea was that you can, and I also did this so it would go in the vise. When I made the vise later, I got the idea that we should probably put this in the vise. It's come out a little bit more than you. There we go. All right, that's in there. So your item that you're going to use, chisel. Now I would put oil down first. Put your oil down, get the surface nice and wet, and then work your item at the angle. And I'm not doing entire sharpening videos. There are lots of videos on YouTube on how to sharpen. Check some of those out if you're interested in learning how to sharpen. I'm just going over the very basics here. So anyway, do my sharpening, and then I will come over to the strop, and to finish it off, I can work it on the strop. Of course, watching where my fingers are, just, working on that a little. Some people will go all the way and put some material, lubricant down on the strop and work it in a little more. That you could do that. That's fine. For me, this is all I need to do. That's what I'm going to go with. So that has worked well for me here in my workshop, and it's a nice little project that I did pretty quick and created something that I could use in the workshop and have used ever since. And so these are just a few things that I have made here in the workshop. They don't take much time or material, and you can make something pretty quick.